Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with the repertoire video I promised I would never do, Mozart's Requiem. But I have a very good reason for doing it. And the reason is that, as some of you may know, since I sent around a notice, on Thursday of last week, that's August 1st, 2024, if we're listening in the year 5823, my really close friend and partner, David Vernier, my partner in the website, that is, and business partner, passed away. And it was very sudden and really kind of gut-wrenching for all of us here at ClassicsToday.com. He was just a wonderful person, a terrific human being, a fabulous editor, a great writer, a composer, a singer, a violinist, a pianist. He was enormously gifted musically and completely humble about all of it. But he was, first and foremost, a choral music enthusiast. And we talked about the Mozart Requiem a lot, and I explained basically how I didn't much care for it because I found it somewhat patchy, and it had nothing to do with Süssmayer's completion or anything like that. It's just the work itself struck me as something that, maybe Mozart was dying. I don't know. It doesn't do it for me. It does it for everybody else. It's me. It's not the work. And he, of course, loved it. He loved it because he was a singer and a choral music enthusiast, and it meant a lot to him. And so at ClassicsToday.com, most of the reviews that we covered over the years of Mozart's Requiem were written by him. And so this repertoire video is his best recordings of the Mozart Requiem. I thought the best way to do this would be as a tribute to my friend and partner and colleague at Classics Today. Let's make this David Vernier's Mozart Requiem repertoire video, at least mostly. It's going to be a little bit of a mixture because, believe it or not, I have reviewed the Mozart Requiem. I mean, I know what a good performance of it is. I just don't care about them terribly much, but he cared deeply. And if you want to see 27 really interesting Mozart Requiem reviews or something like that, go over to ClassicsToday.com and have a read. Actually, a bunch of critics did them, but most of the best reviews of the Mozart Requiem were by him. And one of the things he was very particular about, we discussed this at length, was the problem of the additions. It's not that Süssmayer's terrible, but because it was left incomplete, it's like anything that's incomplete. It's like feeding frenzy among musicologists. And there are three main editions of Mozart's Requiem. One is Süssmayer, the other is Robert Levan, and the last one is Franz Bayer. Now Robert Levan is he's passing himself off as the reincarnation of Mozart right now. I say that facetiously, but he's a tremendous musical scholar, and Mozart is his specialty, and he can improvise in the style of Mozart, and he can compose in the style of Mozart, and he's filled out and fleshed out a lot of bits of the Requiem, and so his version, has gotten some play, particularly among period instrument groups and whatnot. Franz Bayer is the version that I think most of the people who I know who care about Mozart Requiem really prefer. Bayer has limited himself to cleaning up what he considered to be some of the more unidiomatic bits of what Süssmayer did. And he's done it very successfully. He really has. It's a very, very good edition of the Requiem to work with. And so David thought that Bayer's was the best, and generally speaking, but he didn't let that stop him from choosing his however recording, the however choice. It will be his, not mine. But a couple of mine are getting in there anyway because, these were all recordings that we discussed at length. I didn't write a review of the Mozart Requiem without first letting him vet it. And he was, of course, the editor-in-chief at ClassicsToday.com. So if I said anything that was bad or that he didn't like, he would let me know in no uncertain terms. So I have here 10 basic choices, which will encompass, as usual, mention of probably at least that many more versions as we go. Here they are, all in a clump. And so let's go through the Mozart Requiems and see which are the really good ones. And there are some less good ones here too. And the less good ones may surprise you. Let me see, where's the less good one? Oh, there it is. Okay, let's start historically with good old Bruno Valter. Bruno Valter was a Mozart guy. I mean, he was known as a Mozart guy. This is a mono recording with a wonderful cast of soloists. It's Irmgard Seyfried, Jenny Torrell, Leopold Simoneau, and William Warfield with the Westminster Choir and the New York Philharmonic. It's a beautiful, sensitive, heartfelt, warm, like everything Valter does. You know, words like warm, humane, you know, all always come up, but that's because they're true. It's on Sony Classical, and it's a nice historical version, one of the better historical versions, actually. So we'll just put that one over there, and now we get to the one that's not so hot. You ready? And this is going to shock you. I guarantee it's going to shock you. You ready? Charles Mackerras. Everybody has an off day on Lynn with the Scottish Chamber Orchestra and Chorus. The problem is the singers. Oh, the singers are not very good. You have Susan Gritton, Catherine Wynne Rogers, Timothy Robinson, and Peter Rose. The men are particularly lousy in this performance. They really are. And I mean, the playing is good. It's a stylish performance. Mackerras can't do bad Mozart as a conductor. But not only is the singing not up to snuff, but the sonics are sort of messed up here, too. This is a hybrid SACD thing. Maybe it was like the beginning of digital when they really weren't comfortable with the technology. I'm not exactly sure. But whatever happened, the balances between orchestra and chorus are sort of messed up. And it's just not a good performance or not a good recording of a not very good performance. And I wanted to particularly mention this because, first of all, David Vernier loved the label Lynn and most of the things that they did. I like the label Lynn and most of the things that they did. Mackerras on Lynn was particularly persuasive in Mozart, and so we had really, really high expectations for this thing. And just imagine our surprise when our expectations were not met. And you can read the review of this one, at least, and most of these, actually. You can read reviews at classicstoday.com. Like I said, there's a couple of dozen Mozart Requiem reviews over there that you can search and have some fun with. Some of the ones I didn't mention, I will mention here. So, that ones that I'm not mentioning here that are there. Never mind. That didn't make any sense at all, did it? Okay, here's a shocker. A shocker of a great Mozart Requiem. Leonard Bernstein on Deutsche Grammophon. Bernstein did Mozart's Great Mass in C minor and the Requiem, both with the Bavarian Radio Symphony Orchestra and the chorus of the Bavarian Radio, which is a fabulous chorus. The soloists are quite good. It's Mary McLaughlin, Maria Ewing, Jerry Hadley, and Cornelius Hauptmann. They all know what they're doing. But more than anything else, anyone who thinks they've got Bernstein pigeonholed really should hear this. It's a very fine performance. So is the Mass in C minor. In fact, the reason I started listening to these, I was just going to ignore them because I said, oh, good Lord, what's the point? But my colleague, Christoph Huss, at Repertoire magazine, did one of those blind listening things where they play 100 versions of something and they all decide what was the best. And for the Mass in C minor, Bernstein won. And he came really close here, too. These are big band, traditional performances, but they are beautiful. And he uses the Franz Bayer edition on top of it. So this is a real surprise. In fact, Bernstein's choral work, he was also doing the Haydn Masses out there too with Bavarian Radio, and there are some really fine performances in there. There really are, and it's a little niche of his repertoire and late work that most people don't know. So I really wanted to include that one, and Vernier was very pleasantly surprised by it as well. Then we've got who's this one? Okay. This is the Robert Levan edition, featuring Boston Baroque with Martin Perlman and Ruth Zizak and Nancy Maltzby and Richard Croft and David Arnold. Now again, the question is, do you want this edition? Other people have done the Levan edition. I think Hogwood did too. I don't know. There were a bunch of them. They're all period instrument performances for the most part, I think. And this is very good of its type. I'm not a fan. I don't mind period instruments, by the way. I have no issue with that. but this was not one of my preferred recordings. And Vernier, who knows these forces quite well, I think liked it better than I did. But was not also a major fan of the Robert Levan edition of the Requiem, because he felt that you should limit it more to what Mozart actually wrote and not what you wish he had written but didn't. If you like the traditional fabulous choral singing Mozart Requiem, here you go. It's the Atlanta Symphony and Robert Shaw with Arlene Auger, Doris Ziegler, Jerry Hadley, and Tom Krause. A very, very good cast of soloists. Arlene Auger is wonderful, just about everything she did. The Atlanta Symphony Chorus was the ne plus ultra of big band symphony traditional choruses. Robert Shaw was a very, very fine conductor in this repertoire. So there's very little not to love, especially if you're a fan of great choral singing, as David Vernier certainly was. So this is worth considering on Telarc. Then we've got, oh yes, Philippe Herreweghe on Harmonia Mundi. Now, Herreweghe was a favorite of David Vernier, and he was a favorite of mine in this repertoire too. I have to be perfectly honest about it. I liked his performances for the most part, because he was always, he was one of those conductors. He was a gentle soul, but warm and lyrical, and just he liked to hear beautiful choral sounds, beautiful vocal sounds. His Monteverdi Vespers always blew me away. His Bach St. Matthew Passion is one of the few recordings of that makes me want to listen to the St. Matthew Passion. He's really, really very fine in this repertoire. And this Mozart Requiem features Sibylla Rubens, Annette Marquardt, Ian Bostridge, and Hanno Müller-Brachmann, with, as usual, La Chapelle Royale and the Orchestre des Champs-Élysées. On Harmonia Mundi. It's a beautiful recording of the Requiem, and I know that Vernier was quite fond of it, and so that's definitely one that we want to consider. Then we have, okay, oh, this is beautiful. This is on the Phillips 50 Requiem, Coronation Mass, Ave Verum Corpus, all that stuff. This is with the Leipzig Radio Choir, which is one of the great choirs in the history of mankind, and the Staatskapelle Dresden, which is like amazing, and Peter Schrier conducting. This is as great as his Bach recordings, with the same forces, basically. The soloists are amazing. Margaret Price, Trude Eliza Schmidt, Francisco Ariza, and Theo Adam. Really, really terrific performance of the Mozart Requiem. I think everybody liked this one. I really do. It's in scale. It's not overblown or overinflated, or it's not carry-on slick, and gloopy. And it's really wonderful. So Schrier is definitely somebody to consider very seriously, and it was gorgeously recorded. Those East German recordings were just marvelous. And now we have one of my partner's very favorite recordings on a label that he passionately promoted, because it was a label that just adored choral music. That's what they did. Chorus. Here it is with Frieder Bernius. Now, Frieder Bernius is another, he was sort of like the Robert Shaw of the more scholarly period instrument-y part of the universe, because a lot of these performances were done in connection with publication of editions of the music in question, because Carlos is also a big deal music publisher. And Franz Bayer wrote the notes for this that use his edition, which is terrific. The soloists are very good. It's a live recording. It's very nicely captured. It was recorded in, November. How do they do this in Europe? It's year, day, month. Yeah. November 12th. Thank you. 1999. There we go. And it's really a very fine performance. But it's another one of those recordings that's a bit like Herreweghe. It's a gentle performance. Frieder Bernius is concerned mostly with vocal qualities, bringing out the singing quality of the music, and not making a dramatic point. And you can argue that in sacred music that's more appropriate. So I'm not fetching about it. I think it's a beautiful recording. I really do. It's not my favorite, but it was definitely one of David Vernier's favorite. And the other things he was always happy about what was happening on Chorus, and especially Frieder Bernius, who made some extraordinarily beautiful recordings and very different recordings, and doing it from his perspective, usually with smaller forces, with the premium always placed on the vocal contributions, which were always exquisite and very, very beautifully done. So this was definitely one of Vernier's favorite. Then we get my favorite, and this may surprise you, but I loved this performance when it came out. This was Haron Court, his second one. Remember, he did at least a second, maybe there were more. But there was the big Teldec box of all the Mozart sacred music that had his Requiem in it. And it was, of course, issued independently first. But then he did this remake. And it's with Concertus Musicus Wien and the Arnold Schoenberg Choir, we usually used, with Christine Schaefer and Bernarda Fink and Kurt Streit and Gerald Finley. A terrific lineup of soloists. This is the Franz Bayer edition. It's the right edition, and it's fantastically well recorded. This is one of Haron Court's late recordings, and you get a sense with some of these things with Haron Court at the end, the Missa Solemnis too, that he was sort of preparing. You know what I mean? He kind of knew the end was near; it was coming, and he just did stupendous work. Now, the Mozart's Requiem, the original manuscript, is on the CD-ROM track of this CD. It's on Deutsche Harmonia Mundi, and it's an SACD. It's all of that stuff, but it's a gorgeous, gorgeous performance that has all of Haron Court's rhetorical emphasis. The drama where it's dramatic and the lyricism when it's lyrical, but he doesn't make too much of it. There's a what's the word? A sensibility. A sort of religious intensity to this that's just marvelous, and just the opposite of sort of, Karajan's typical slickness. There are a lot of big band Mozart Requiems out there. Remember, Schulte did one, and Karl Böhm did it, of course, and Karajan did it a couple of times, and there's Giulini too. Let's not forget, Carlo Maria Giulini did a gorgeous Mozart Requiem with the Philharmonia on EMI, which it's been re-released on Warner, and I have that one on order because I wanted to give it another shot and see how the sound came out, just to see what it sounds like, and I'll report back to you if there are any recordings here that you're missing. And there are thousands of recordings of the Mozart Requiem, so I'm sure you're all missing some. We can always do a cleanup video, as we have been doing for Winterreise and certain other works as well. So I have no problem doing that. But for select suggestions. But this is just a sensational one. Haron Court's last effort on period instruments with period singers who they dug up freshly for this. And then we've got However. This is the However. This is not my However. This is David Vernier's However choice for the Mozart Requiem, and I dedicate this whole operation to him. It is, and this may surprise you, but it shouldn't, Neville Mariner and the Academy of St. Martin in the Fields, with Ilyana Kotrubash, Helen Watts, Robert Tier, John Shirley Quirk, first-class lineup of soloists. Really, really beautiful. It's the Franz Bayer edition. There you go. And this is the Decca recording. Now remember, he did it twice. Mariner did. Here is the other one. This is with Sylvia McNair, Carolyn Watkinson, Francisco Ariza, and Robert Lloyd. This is the Phillips version. This is 1990. And this other one was recorded in, I think it was like 67, somewhere there's 70s. There's a bunch of things. This is a twofer. So it probably is a little bit later. Let me just take a look and get the date. Because when he switched to what you call it, okay, there's that double decker other goodies. Oh, here we go. Recording date CD 277. There you go. So it was shortly before he flipped to Phillips and went and re-recorded everything under the sun 1 million times. So do not be confused, because this first one, according to my partner, had more spontaneity and a little bit more sparkle. I mean, the Requiem isn't supposed to sparkle, but he meant liveliness and intensity. This is also very beautiful. Mariner always did a good Mozart Requiem. He was deeply devoted to the work. There's no question about that. It obviously meant something to him. This was the one, by the way, this Decca one that they used in the film Amadeus, I think. I mean, it was this one or this one. It was one of these, whichever one. But the bottom line is, David Vernier felt that this particular Mozart Requiem had the best of all the various qualities. It had the right proportions. It was smallish forces, but not so small as to sound anemic. It was stylish. I mean, it was absolutely stylish. The period instrument people have nothing on what Mariner and the Academy could do on modern instruments. It had an exceptional quartet of soloists. It had superb choral singing. And it was extremely well paced and wonderfully recorded with beautiful balances between the voices and strings. And for that reason, all's not false that's taught in the public schools. That's the phrase, right? You know, and people might say, "Whoa, this is, you want to find the obscure version, the secret alchemical, whatever, whatever those people did, alchemy people." Turned lead into gold. And, people sometimes go hunting around when there are a billion recordings of everything. It's tempting to want to go find the one no one's heard of and exalt it as the best ever. But sometimes the most commercially successful is also one of the best. It really is one of the best. And so, and I agree with this choice, by the way, and I don't do it for sentimental reasons. I do it because I spend a lot of time listening to these things, whether I like the work or not. I've had quite the time listening to Mozart Requiems in my career, and now that David Vernier is gone, like I said, this particular repertoire video is done in his memory with love and affection and gratitude for his ability to teach me to love choral works that I didn't think I would ever love, and discover pieces that I never thought I'd discover, and help me to understand what you listen for in a great choral recording, and all of those things. It's been 25 plus years at ClassicsToday.com. Plus, we knew each other for another decade before that. And this is for you, Dave. Rest in peace. We love you, and I hope this helps you all to find a Mozart Requiem that will give you peace, consolation, even joy. Keep on listening, friends. Take care.